it was a very blatant attack on the Palestinian movement at that point. It was a very blatant attack on the Palestinian movement. It sets a very dangerous precedent where lobbies can very actively, a foreign linked lobby can very actively say, well, no, we don't want this person to come here and lobby for it. And then the federal government or, they submit to that basically. And they say, okay, fine.
The National Post is doing it again. On the morning of April 22nd, Terry Newman, one of their columnists, put out a piece calling the Palestinian Youth Movement of Montreal a terror group. This is about an event that PYM Montreal organized around prisoner solidarity, especially in the face of a dangerous execution bill that was passed a few months ago. This event sought to share the experiences of these prisoners and their time in prison, and Terry Newman is out here calling it sympathizing with terrorists. Now, that is not what's interesting about this article. What's interesting about the article is it shares the details of an attempted visa block. Now, recently, Zionist lobbies, CBSA, the border agents, they've been sort of successful in blocking Palestinians from entering Canada. Here's an interview with someone from PYM about these instances. Check it out. Folks, welcome back to Local 514. It's me, your host, Calden Datsenpa. Today, I'm joined by Ali Salman from PYM, the Palestinian Youth Movement. Ali is here to talk about an article that came out just this morning. He sent me this article, and now he's here. It's hot off the presses. This is an article by Terry Newman in the National Post, where he talks about this event the PYM did about the prisoners in Israel, and he called PYM a pro-terror group. Is that right?
He did.
Well, there's lots to unpack in the article, and of course, I'm joined by Ali, who was at the event, who knows PYM very well, who we've had on the show before. Are you a pro-terror group?
Oh my God! What a first start. I mean, no. What a question. No, of course we're this event was framed as this event was the most attacked event we had, and of course they had to frame it as us and the event as a pro-terror event and a pro-terror group, because that event literally breaks the image of the only democracy in the Middle East that Israel has.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about the event. You know, you're saying it's the most attacked event that PYM has done. What is it about? What kind of attacks have you been receiving about the event?
Yeah, so the event, basically, it is one of the most attacked events. So the event was an interview with liberated Palestinian prisoners. And the reason why this event is happening is for people to be aware of what's happening inside the prisons in the entity, Israel. And, well, the thing is, they didn't want this to come out. They didn't want that truth to come out. They didn't want the truth about these dungeons to come out. Mm-hmm. So, and it shatters a lot of the narratives that they take about these prisoners, terrorists, pro-terror, terror group affiliated. But it's funny because you cannot, first of all, legally speaking, their courts, and that's statistically speaking, their courts have a 99% conviction rate.
Wow.
And Palestinians are tried in military courts. They're tried unfairly. They're tried usually. It's very, very biased, and they're instantly I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the most prominent charges is affiliated with terrorism. Mm-hmm. So they had to use that narrative, and it's the first time actually we do an event about liberated Palestinian prisoners, and the narrative or the campaign around the Palestinian prisoners today is very prominent because people need to know what's happening there. People need to know what's happening inside the prisons. There is literally, we call it that, but it's literally that there's literally a genocide happening behind bars and a silent genocide happening behind bars. And the proof to that is the bill that was just passed in the Knesset a few months ago about the execution of Palestinian prisoners. There's almost 1,000 Palestinian prisoners awaiting execution, basically.
That's awful. That's awful.
Yeah.
I feel like from our vantage point here, what I've seen a lot of is the coverage of the just gruesome bloodshed and the like war-torn buildings, right, on the outside of the genocide, right? But now it's interesting hearing about this event that's about sort of what's happening behind bars, right, within these Israeli kind of systems, and it's really interesting, especially that the people who came after you, like the people in the article, is written by Terry Newman. You mentioned Neil Oberman as well, who's the one who contacted the center where this event took place, as well as the two ministers in the federal government, Lena Diab, as well as
He contacted Mark Miller as
Mark
well.
Miller as well. Thank you, Trudeau's old best friend. I'm kind of curious what your reaction is to reading this article. Like when you hear about people attempting to stop it through the way of the federal government. What do you think about that?
It's well, again, I feel like it's just it's a desperate tactic. At this point, it goes back again to the fact that this event literally shatters the image that they try to portray about Israel, and this event shatters the image about that they want to portray about Palestinian prisoners specifically. So when you look at how they went about it, that they went at the last second they started mass sending emails and sending these emails en masse, and like sending these emails to the federal government, and then the legal action and so on. It's almost seems like desperation for them to stop this event, because it hurts the narrative that's built by this entity really badly. And this narrative has been built ever since the occupation of Palestine started in 1948. Ever since we've seen prisoners started going into these prisons, this treatment starting to get worse and worse by the years. And ever since we've seen these things start happening in prisons, and the treatment started getting worse, and the killings, and now with the execution bill, it's like it shatters that image, and it's like one of the foundations that the entity like the Israel is built on. Having Palestinian prisoners come in, mass arresting Palestinians for anything. There's people who have been arrested for throwing a rock at a tank, and that tank being in occupied lands. And they spent years in prison for that. There's people who have been arrested on no basis. There's people who have been arrested and falsely accused, yet spent years there. So yeah, so it really shows that this image is shattered, and the way they went about it with contacting federal ministers and going about it with legal letters, and so they didn't even care to read like a little bit about the event not being in person, and they thought that the prisoners were going to come in person.
You see that in the article by Terry Newman, where at the they're really fear mongering, talking about this pro-terror event where they're celebrating people who are terrorists, and they have this like long rap sheet of the organizations that the PYM is involved with, and how they're listed as terrorist organizations. But it's interesting because that kind of logic reflects this narrative, right? That's been in place, as you're saying, since the occupation began. Later on in the article, they even admit they're like, the National Post is like, oh, we couldn't confirm whether or not any speakers were actually present. And it's like, if I'm reading this, I'm like, what are you talking? It's like, so this is like a nothing kind of article, It's just pure kind of like, it's pure fluff for Neil Oberman, the lawyer who sent that letter to Lena Diab, to Mark Miller, to Saint Saint Pierre,
And it's funny, how couldn't you confirm that after the event happened?
Yeah. At least, if you're gonna try to do good reporting, you try to go there, you try to find out, but clearly that's not what they're interested in. I wanna talk a little more about why this event happened, right? So as I understand it, we see this terrible execution bill that was passed, with lots of celebration and fanfare from the Knesset. So as I understand it, your PYM has hosted this event to try to counter that narrative, to try to bring more light on what's happening behind bars. Tell me a little more about the why.
Yeah, so there's a campaign that started around January, called literally Free Palestinian Prisoners, and this campaign is growing, and it's mainly aims at showing people, because for years, like when we spoke about liberation for the past 7-8 years, a lot of the the stories of prisoners came out, and we spoke about prisoners, but there was no campaign specifically showing and statistics and research and work that was done to specifically shed light on that specific issue. And I think when that campaign started, the idea was to spread awareness and make people like consciousness about the specific issue, because it goes under the radar a lot of the time when we speak about liberation and occupation and so on, even though it's one of the main the main like tools of occupation and the main shatters for that occupation. I want to take a little bit of an example. When Lebanon, the south of Lebanon, was liberated in 2000, the first, as a Lebanese person, I just want to say this: the first images that come to mind to every Lebanese person is the Al Khiyam prison, which was one of the worst and most, violent prisons. That prison and the prisoners there being liberated still lives in our minds till today. And that shows how important the prisoners are, because they are one of the pillars of the occupation, but also one of the things that shatters that occupation.
Right. I want to talk a bit about what Neil Oberman seemed to be trying to do, and what I think has been a pattern of recent, right, against a lot of the Palestinian organizing attempts, but even just outside of like actual organizing attempts, there's been blocks of Palestinian visas, right? Visas for Palestinians to enter Canada. In the article by Terry Newman, you can see that Neil Oberman sent this letter trying to block what would have been what they thought were speakers coming to speak here in Montreal about their experience as prisoners. And what was revealed is that no, of course, this was done over the internet. But blocking visas is something that these Zionist groups have been successful with. Can you tell me a little more about recent cases of these?
So the one that's for sure been affiliated with Zionist lobbies is Rima Hassan being blocked from coming to Canada in like the 27th of March.
Can you tell us a bit who Rima is?
So Rima Hassan is a European Parliament member. She was on the flotillas 2 times, and she was arrested and obviously put in prisons until she was released later on in Israel after her participation in the flotillas. And she's a very big advocate for Palestinian liberation. And obviously because of her position in the European Parliament, also it makes it a little bit more that it's a political level advocacy, but that's also important, So that's who Rima Hassan is.
So she was supposed to come to Montreal.
She was supposed to come to Montreal, yes, and her visa was at first it was accepted, and it was rejected. It was rescinded or like
Revoked,
pulled for revision a day before she was supposed to come.
Sure.
Yeah, the night actually before she was supposed to.
So the night before she's supposed to come here, she gets a notice. The visa that was accepted is no longer accepted. We're reviewing it.
Yeah. And the reason given was, and that's according to her posts and according to what we got, was that she did not specify in her initial application that she was banned from Israel. Like it has anything to do with coming to Canada. So that was one of the reasons given to Rima Hassan, is that she did not specify that.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I think when I hear that, it makes me, it almost sounds like, I don't know if there's other cases of that happening, but it's like, it's almost as if Israel's borders have to be Canada's borders, right? It's like the same rules apply at both.
And the Zionist lobbies, B'nai B'rith, took credit for that. Took credit for her visa being revised, quote unquote, and rejected, and her not being able to come. They took credit for that actively. And they were campaigning for her not coming for the week before her landing in Montreal. So yeah, that's a blatant case. It's not even like a behind the scenes type of case. It's like they took
openly
credit for it openly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess it kind of checks out that now Neil Oberman is maybe trying the same stuff if he wasn't already involved with the blocking of Rima. I'm kind of curious, what. So PYM invited Rima to come to Montreal.
It was not actually PYM. It was student groups in Concordia, SPHR Concordia and PCC Concordia. Yeah. PYM took part in that panel, the same panel that Rima Hassan was supposed to be on. And these students, I was kind of close to the PSSA and so on, the people who actually brought Rima Hassan here, and it was a shot in the dark, by the way, just a random fact. It was literally a shot in the dark. I was there when it happened. Randomly, one day we just send an email to Rima, and she's like, "Okay," like this next day, she's like, "Okay," and Well, that was back in October. So I can imagine the frustration after like this 5 months of
course,
working
yeah,
towards it, and then
months of build up,
Yeah.
you're getting ready for
and
this.
then a night before, boom.
Right. Even your work, right, that you put into it.
Yeah.
Getting her here, having her here for the talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was,
Yeah, yeah. So she was supposed to come here. She didn't end up coming here physically, but she was still present at the talk.
yeah.
Online.
She was online.
Okay,
Exactly.
Okay.
And yeah, well, that was. I mean, at least at the. I mean, it was kind of stupid because in the end she got to come and speak like online. Obviously,
Yeah,
she
of
spoke
course.
online. She spoke at the other conference she was supposed to be at. So it was symbolic because we got the word out, right?
course.
For the Zionists, it was symbolic because they got. But it's not just symbolic. I want to make that very clear because it was a very blatant attack on the Palestinian movement.
Right.
At that point, it was a very blatant attack on the Palestinian movement. It sets a very dangerous precedent where lobbies can very actively. A foreign linked lobby can very actively say, well, no, we don't want this person to come here and lobby for it. And then the federal government or, they submit to that basically. And they say, okay, fine.
The border is a political tool, right?
Yeah,
to
it
be
is.
to be leveraged for them. That's what it appears to be.
100%. It was a direct attack on the Palestine movement. It was a very dangerous precedent. And now we're at the third case of Zionists or like a visa. Like, the first case was Rima Hassan, her being rescinded. The second case was the Palestinian Football Association having some of their members not be able to process their visas to come to Canada. And the third case was this one with the Palestinian prisoners where they tried to go to I mean, it didn't work because they weren't coming anyway, but they tried to go to the IRCC to get them out, and they tried to go to the federal government to not get them to come here if they were to come here, right? So it happened within a span not even of a month.
How do you think that reflects on the Canadian government?
It reflects pretty badly. Like, why is the Canadian government listening to lobbies and people that are linked to a foreign government and a foreign, like, it's foreignly linked, right? This is not like it's I can't even find the words for it because it's disgusting that we're getting to that point where there's the Palestinian movement, anyone related to Palestine really having their visas rescinded or their visas not accepted or a very long process for their visas to be accepted, and then we're literally at that point, and the government is not doing anything about it. The government is just listening and basically listening and applying, listening to what the Zionists have to say and applying it.
Almost sounds like, there's lots of worry about, like, people always talk about foreign interference, like Russia affecting political decisions in Canada. Meanwhile, we have the Zionists deciding how visas are rejected and accepted.
It's the most blatant foreign interference. I mean, I get all the time. It's funny because it's now you have this rise in nationalism as well, where you have the people who are very like, basically the MAGA of Canada that are very anti-immigration and so on, and they're always fearful about what you just said, the foreign interference. This is the most blatant example of foreign interference that no one talks about, or it's barely talked about. But now that it's coming out, I mean, I'm glad that it's coming out. I'm glad that they're going to that tactic because it's going to expose so many. It's going to expose the hypocrisy, not only their hypocrisy, but the hypocrisy of the government really deeply.
Do you expect these attempts to slow down the organizing that PYM is doing or other pro-Palestinian groups?
Not at all. You know why? Because I'll say this, and I'll say, like, when that happened to Rima Hassan and to the prisoners panel, to the Rima Hassan, I can speak of it better because I'm a bit more with that I was a bit more involved in that context. When that happened to Rima Hassan, there was 200 people who registered overnight for the Rima Hassan event. And it's like, when you do that, I don't get what is not, like, the logic behind this is that the more they're gonna push or the more they're gonna try to choke the Palestine movement, the more people are gonna rally around it. There is a base, there's a whole community behind the Palestine movement. We saw the past 2 years how there's tens of thousands of people who took the streets, sometimes hundreds of thousands in some countries, who took the streets for Palestine, for Gaza, demanding arms embargo, demanding real concrete demands. And now we saw this, and I don't get how the political class does not understand that the Palestine movement at this point and even beyond that cannot be attacked without having this big of a base rally behind it, this big of a community rally behind it. The Palestine movement is called a movement for a reason. It's big, it's powerful, and it's strong.
Incredible. Where can people follow PYM and other events they're organizing?
PYM, well, there's the Instagram mainly at PYM Montreal, and then there's the bigger Instagram which is Palestinian Youth Movement, and then there's Facebook events, and there's also, I think they can sign up through the links in our Instagram to the newsletter.
Terrific. Anything coming up that you can share?
Actually, the May 16th there is a Nakba protest. This is the 78th year since the official date of the occupation of Palestine, and it's going to be on May 16th. So
terrific. Well, thank you very much, Ali, for coming on.
You're
talking
welcome.
to me about this article, the organizing that PYM is doing, and this very concerning attempts, successful and sometimes not, by the Zionist lobbies to.
I do want to clarify one thing.
Please.
Okay. When we spoke about the Palestinian Football Association,
yes.
I want to clarify one thing because some people did not, some people perceived it wrongly. The people who were banned from for coming here to the FIFA Congress were 3 people from the Palestine Football Association. It was not the team.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
So
I think that's something I saw where like a lot of photos were shared where they had the entire team lined up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to clarify, it was 3 people. And it was these people, like the Palestine Football Association has been coming to the FIFA congresses to raise concerns about Israel still participating in FIFA competitions, and demanding that Israel gets banned from FIFA, just like they did to Russia. And it has been a very big thing that they've been advocating for, not only the Palestine Football Association, but many football associations around the world. And and just to clarify, this is exactly the situation. This is what happened, and
Totally. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
You have all the links where you can find out about future PYM events, like the one on May 16th. Thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Thank you.